2023. Mother Gaia, third dimensional planet, ascending into fourth dimensional collective consciousness. Azure,
Grand Rising Captain.
can you give me the update on third dimensional planet Gaia?
Yes, Christo, with pleasure. Gaia 3D currently is under critical condition. It seems there is a large amount of humans that have forgotten who they are, causing confusion, division and war driven by fear.
Thank you, Azure. Before we head down to Gaia, can you give me any information about the 3D world, as it's been a while since I've been there?
Sure, the 3D Gaia. We will face much resistance from negative polarity beings as a dual plane. Karma and Dharma are in effect. There is free will. It will be wise to protect our energy and hold love.
Alright, thank you, Azure. Sounds like we have quite the task at our hands. But that's why we're here, and that's why we've been called upon in the Galactic Federation to go down to planet Gaia, the 3D realm. Alright, Azure, let's get ourselves ready to go. Let's hit the time portal and make sure we land in the present day, Mother Gaia, third dimension. Whoa, oopsies. Yeah, not that one. Okay, let's try this one. Maybe this is the portal. Oh yeah, Azure, this is a little too far in the future. I think we need to kind of go back a little bit. There we go. Perfect. Modern day Earth.
Captain Christo, as we approach, I will prepare our guest suite on the mothership for the souls we hold space for. Oh, and Captain, I will be sure to leave plenty of storage for earthly food delights to take for our travels.
Oh my gosh, Azure, you never fail to make me laugh. You know those earthly delights? That good old food of earth. Absolutely gotta have that food of earth. Thank you, Azure. Alright. It is time. It's time to make our way down to 3D Gaia. To hold space, show love, compassion, bridge the conscious collective, and help provide knowledge and wisdom and tools so fellow souls can remember who they are, live in a unified mind state with a harmonious being, with holistic, conscious practices and tools that they may access efficiently and quantumly.
Welcome aboard. I am Azure. Please get cozy. Grab a tea, snacks or crystals as we prepare for a sacred light conversation. The sacred holding space is down the hall to the left. Wholeness, balanced love.
from all the challenges that we naturally face in life, and watch it all happen without getting caught up in all the drama. And it's interesting. The balance to that is, I think, how to be real too. At the same time, we're a human, and it's happening to us, and we can stay so detached that we deny our experience and minimalize the magic, so to speak. Because we're here to have the full range of human experiences, and a lot of so-called awakened people, try to, I'm going to rise above all this and not, get in it. But sometimes we should be, I think, let ourselves experience the full range of the emotion and whatever it is that experience brings to us. It's all a beautiful part of the human experience. And if we're not careful, we'll numb ourselves to our experience by trying to be so enlightened and above it all. I'm not hearing you. I'm seeing your lips moving, but I can't hear you now.
Of course.
There we go.
I was just saying, that's a very, very beautifully said. And it's interesting because, excuse me, earlier today, I was doing a podcast live. And in that podcast, we were talking about knowledge and wisdom. And just, the differences of what knowledge is and what wisdom is, at least according to us. And, you were speaking on, truly enlightening yourself and experiencing something. And something I see is like knowledge is kind of like information. It doesn't really have much life to it, so to say. Knowledge is not brought to life until our energy or until consciousness is brought behind that knowledge, I feel like. And a lot of times we mix up wisdom with knowledge. And according to, their most basic definitions, wisdom is something that is obtained through experiencing the information or experiencing the energy of it. So knowledge is basically like this neutral default coding system of how something operates or functions. And that's just all it is until it's brought into life, until it's brought into a living system for it to be inputted and experienced. And then through that input and experience, it's how we develop wisdom through our avatars, through our beings, as we travel through time and space and go through experiences. So what we find is a lot of people, some people, I guess you should say, and this always changes along our journey, of course, is we may be knowledge heavy, but we may not be as deep in our wisdom. As in, we could study a lot of text, or we could read a lot of scripture, a lot of books and other things. But if we are not integrating that knowledge, if we're not trying to embody it, if we're not trying to truly experience the information or the codes, then we won't have access to that deeper wisdom, so to say, of what that knowledge will be for ourselves in our human journey if we apply it to ourselves. And it's one thing I've really found almost like most important in my life is allowing myself to experience things for my own self, allowing myself to feel it through my senses, feel it through my emotions, feel it through my mind, and through my physical body, so I can gather and naturally through my inner intuitive nature, be able to receive whatever it is that it is for me.
I think I'm smiling because it's so easy to oversimplify what I'm about to say. But you could simplify spiritual development by saying what Maki Ruka, for example, one of my teachers, an elder from the Maori people in New Zealand, who was a close friend of mine before we crossed over, he once said, David, the journey from the head to the heart is a long and arduous journey, but it's not near as long and arduous as the journey from the heart back to the head. And it relates to what you're talking about in that what I think he was saying is that I guess you could say the first step in spiritual development is realizing that we are a spirit in a body, not a body with a spirit, and stop saying my soul and your soul, but identify ourselves as soul that has a body rather than a body that has a soul. And anytime you hear someone refer to my soul or your soul, that suggests that they are still in that state of identifying themselves as the body that has the soul. So death is terrifying and so forth. But I think what Mackie was alluding to is the big first multi-decade or multi-lifetime journey there is transferring control of the human experience from the head, the mind, to the heart, to the true self soul, where you do things that may seem completely irrational, but you know it's right in your heart, and you take that leap of faith. And sometimes you misread it, or sometimes it leads to what you thought was going to be this delightful, wonderful, happy, lovey-dovey scene, and instead of just this whole new bundle of lessons that are excruciating, but something you needed to go through. And so we have to completely transition to where we understand that everything that comes to us is a blessing, and a carefully orchestrated series of micro steps to expansion, coordinated by our spirit helpers on the other side, who are finding people with complementary lessons to ours so we fit together. So we have the mirror image of our lesson that we need, and they have this other person needs the flip side of it, has it also. And the grandmas then on the other side have a party to celebrate their success if we all play the game right. So the first big part of the journey is going from controlled by the mind and logic and wanting everything to be predictable and orderly and safe and have the illusion of security in the physical dimension, and then trusting in that inner guidance, no matter how counter it may seem to rationality. And that's the journey from the head to the heart, in the way I would describe it. But then I think that the journey back from the heart to the mind is bringing the mind into its proper role and getting it to fully embrace its role as an assistant to spirit rather than an opponent. To cease the struggle and embrace its role. And one thing that I've figured out along the way that really helps with that is to use the ego by saying to the mind from the heart, just think how wonderful you're going to look and how everyone's going to love you so much when you have access to total knowledge and wisdom and the interconnectedness of spirit. Just think how good you're going to look when you have all this access to the vastness of knowledge of the universe at your disposal. And people will say, oh, you're so wise, and you can take all that credit if you want, And so it was a way I discovered to help the mind relinquish control to the heart. And then the mind to embrace its role as an intercessor between the physical and spiritual dimensions. where it helps us function optimally in the physical, emotional, and mental dimensions. Um, I believe that the brain is the vehicle that allows us to do that, to interact. It's what, like scientists can tell you how many trillion neurons there are and how they're all interconnected. And if this part of the brain's damaged, then you can't do that. And the scientists think that explains it. But no, that doesn't explain it. That's looking at the effect of the mind, not what's really going on there. Like in the early days, we used electroconvulsive shock therapy, where they ran an electrical current right through the brain, and there are medicinal ways they do it now. It's not quite so brutal. But my older half brother had hundreds of shock treatments at Austin State Mental Hospital in the 60s. And I remember how it like fried his brain, and he would be just sitting there drooling on himself after a series of shock treatments. So when I would go to see him a couple of weeks later, he would seem back to normal. Well, how were those memories restored? There's no way to explain that. I mean, if you run an electric current through the brain and it erases everything, it's like a reboot for the brain. Now it's used mostly for depression, people that are absolutely bent on suicide. Just like give them a reboot on things. Maybe they'll come back feeling not quite so hopeless and helpless. But I believe that the fact that those memories are restored within a few weeks suggests that they're stored at another frequency, another dimension, like the astral dimension or the causal dimension, deeper than the astral, where the Akashic records are supposed to be kept and so forth. That those memories that we have are not mechanically stored in our brain, but the brain is the interface between those records. And that's what allows us to run this shell effectively in the physical dimension once the mind has fully embraced its role and the brain is clean and clear and not intoxicated. It can then fulfill its true purpose, which is to take the knowledge that's acquired and apply it with the wisdom of the heart to best serve in all the dimensions.
Thank you. That was so beautifully articulated, and it's very fascinating. I've had quite a few conversations about this lately, and something that I've been teaching to some others on my YouTube channel, as well as at some of these festivals and events, including actually at the last Serpent Mound event, not the summer, but the eclipse one, back in the spring at the Star Knowledge Summit. I taught the light body and the chakras in accordance to our multidimensional human being, and also did a meditation for them as well. So what's really interesting is you were talking about, spirit or energy coming through the mind and then processing through what you could say emotion, and then into the physical. This directly relates to what I want to pull up here real quick onto the screen, which is the layers of our human aura. So our human aura, if we look at this diagram right here, which is a very simple and basic diagram that you can find hundreds of on Google anytime. And what this is showing is not only the different bodies or layers of our aura, also the chakras. But here, relating to what our brother David was saying, with the mental, emotional, and physical, if we look here at this diagram, the layers, starting at layer 1, begins at the etheric body. Now, the etheric body has many names. It could be also known as the rainbow body in Buddhist teachings. It's also known as the energy body, the light body, or the metaphysical body. And just below that, you have the physical human body. So the physical human body is our most dense body, so to say, vibrationally, of our human form. And then the next layer is that etheric or light body, which is why it's called metaphysical, because it's between physical realm and pure spirit. So therefore it's metaphysical. In the metaphysical, this is also where the chakras and our energy centers reside. This energy body and the chakras act as gateways, portals, or bridges between our physical body to the rest of these bodies that are layered within this diagram. So that being said, next layer out from our energy body is the emotional body. This is where we're able to sense the dimension of emotions. It's through the emotional body. And then the next layer you have from there is the mental body. So this is a physical diagram demonstrating exactly what David was just speaking on. So when we're receiving information into our aura from the outside, you begin at layer 7 instead of layer 1. So with that being said, the information quantumly on a vibration energetic level comes into our auric field, which is a continuous toroidal field based off of magnetism and current. And as we attract and magnetize the information, the codes of our experiences, it then accumulates into our field. And the more that we hold on to this stuff, it becomes density. And this density can then create imbalances and disease throughout our chakras and other parts of our being. So this information and energy, when it comes into our auric field, comes through layer 7 and then makes its way through the layers to get to our physical senses. So with that being said, it comes into the mental body, which means we mentally become aware of something conscious with our mental energy before it assimilates into our physical reality. This is why we will have dreams, we will have visions, when we consciously try to manifest, we're manifesting through the mental realm first, before the physical realm. We're formulating, getting the downloads, getting the information mentally, and then it then filters into the next layer, layer 2, which would be your emotional body. This is where you start feeling it. You start feeling those visions, start feeling those dreams. You start getting that Kundalini activation, or you get that smile, you get that spark about that download you just got. And then from there, it then trickles into your physical body. And this is where you start getting the blueprints on, okay, what steps can I start taking? What actions can I use? What material, what type of physical things do I have to start doing this? And then through your chakras, you start putting together the type of things mentally, emotionally, and physically to be able to manifest, attract, and assimilate something into this physical world. So yeah, it's really interesting. And then the chakras, not to go too deep into that, the chakras basically, depending on what their resonant frequency is at, they are a certain color. They also resonate with a musical note. as well as different planets, organs of the body, and a few other things. And with the chakras being a part of the energy body and being that bridging system for your mental and emotional and spiritual energies to be experienced through your physical body in this physical realm, when we have these chakras on balance, we're in full totality of the dimensions of our mental, emotional, and physical being in harmony, harmonizing with each other, being fluid, to where we're very etheric like and kind of lucid within our physical body due to the amount of spirit or conscious energy that we have flowing through our being. So I just wanted to share that to give people like a visual and holistic um, approach to what it is that our brother David was beautifully articulating.
Yeah, that's a nice diagram and a good way of thinking about it. However, I would add to it, and that I'm not being critical of it. I'm just supplementing it, saying that the balance to that type of diagram is it is very useful and it helps with a mental conceptualization of what's going on. But it is mental. It creates an illusion of understanding.
Mm-hmm.
It's far more complicated than that, of course. But it does for most people. That's a great new idea for them. What you just showed, that helps them gain some understanding about how things are working. But I used to think of the planes of existence as above me, and then I thought of them as around me, going out like that. And then I started thinking of it as going in, where the physical shell, certainly it has an electromagnetic field around it, as evidenced by any plasma ball, if you've ever gotten to play with the plasma ball with the lightning like in it, where you just bring your hand close to it and the light comes out, it reacts to the energy field around your body. So there's no question that we do have that. And I've heard that the electromagnetic field of the heart can extend out 10 feet from the body, so that while you're sitting there talking with someone, your hearts are having their own conversation and getting in sync with one another. So there is this field around us. But I think in some ways it helps to realize that it's a flux. It's like wah, 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 it's like all around us and in us, and we're passing through it, and it's not like stacked up like planes of existence this way or this way out. It's in flux, and I right now think of it as, rather than beyond me, I think of all of it as in me, and the soul, the connection, our little chunk of the creator that we're here to grow, and it connects us with the meta soul, so to speak, what some people call God, or all the thing giving life to all the living things that we're all a part of, is the core, rather than something out there somewhere. Again, it comes back to this shift in thinking I would like to talk about for a minute. I was brought up, as many people on spiritual paths or in the church, where I got the basic fundamental idea that my relationship with the Creator should be paramount in everything that I do. And I left the church not to get away from God like my parents first thought, but to get closer to God and to get away from the materialism and male ego stuff that dominated the church. And so this shift in thinking and awareness from I have a soul to I am a soul changes everything. And it took a couple of decades of catching myself each time I referred to my soul or your soul and changing it to you and me. And it sounds so simplistic to the beginner that, well, yeah, that's true. But for it to shift from being a logical thing to a heart understanding thing, where death no longer holds sway over you. Because when you identify as your body that has a soul, then when you die, you're going to be dead. And this thing you had called a soul, whatever the heck that is going to go on. So death is terrifying. The fear of death, some experts have agreed, is what's behind all anxiety. If you think about like panic is the fear of your imminent death, something tragic's about to happen and in your life, so you have a panic attack. All the fears and anxieties we have are at their core the fear of death. So when you come to understand, and not just mentally understand it, but know it from having had lots of experiences outside the body, aware, conscious experiences, then you no longer fear death. You don't embrace it, you don't want it to happen, but it doesn't cause you to freak out when you might face, the death of the physical shell. You see it for what it is. And it changes everything when you realize you're no longer having to catch yourself and change from my soul or your soul to you and me. And it's just now you recognize that is what you are, that you are soul. You don't have a soul. And it really freaks people out when I tell them that sometimes. I say, by the way, you don't have a soul. I don't have a soul, and neither do you. It freaks them out. And then I tell them, if you say I have a soul, then who is the you that has the soul? You're saying it's your physical body, your mental body, your emotional body, but that's not you. At the core, we're soul. We're a part of God. We're no different than the trees and the flowers and the bugs and the birds, all the living things. We're a little dab of stardust enlivened by water and spirit. And we're here to have this full range of experiences of what it means to be a human. We didn't come here to insulate ourselves from the experience of being human, but to be fully human and to do it in a conscious, loving way, to show how you can be a human being no matter what's going on around you. You can just be a human. You don't have to be any more. That's everything. And it's fully embracing what we are that transforms us into what we can become.
Yeah, I really resonate with that. It is really interesting to say, my soul. That is interesting. Now, I will say, I tend to lean more towards, what I'm saying, when I'm referencing the body, I typically either say the body or my body, and the knowing that, I am not the body. I'm not this identity, flesh form. And that's been a reprogramming that I've been doing with myself for quite a few years now. And this was another thing I was talking about earlier too, is the choice of our words and the things that we're basically affirming to creation or to the universe, whether it's conscious or unconscious, autopilot or not autopilot. There's always a recording going on of what it is that we're affirming as a conscious co-creator in this universe. So we were speaking earlier on the difference of how you can experience life if, say, for example, say that I go through my life and I just say that I am Marcus and I am this human body. This is all that I am. That's all there is to me. And then I will just live this life and then I'll die and that's it. So you can go that direction about your perception of your own free will, because this all comes from free will too, which is such a magical beauty in itself, the infinite expansionness of free will and how it's all temporary and everything like that. But so you can go in that type of direction, or you can go into a direction where it's like, okay, so I am this, whatever terminology you would like to use, I am this spiritual consciousness that is experiencing its own self through all forms and is aware of itself through this form as a human being. So you can also go that way with the way that you want to choose to perceive and kind of affirm with the universe what it is that you want your experience to be like. So as I started kind of like becoming more aware of that and the way that I was wording things, the way that I was reaffirming and constantly programming my own subconscious mind, I was very tedious. I don't want to say tedious, but more consciously aware, more grounded, more patient, kind of more of the, the turtle energy when it came to what it is that I was mentally vibrating out to the universe. And it's made a very big difference, that's for sure. There's so many things I can get into, but if we choose to identify with the most dense or the most lowest vibrational version of ourselves as who we are, then we can really bound ourselves to an immense amount of suffering, as well as immense amount of karmic energy to take on, due to unconsciously or consciously, out of free will, choosing to affirm with the universe that we are wanting to experience, or that we are the embodied experience of a very limited like space, or a limited like container of expression. And it's just very deep stuff, and I really learned slowing down is a big key for me, grounding myself and making sure that when the mind starts kind of jumping and getting a little bit out of control, so to say, to be that counselor of yourself, to be able to just kind of, in different ways too, depending on what's going on. You can either have fun with your thoughts, kind of play with them, be gentle with the thoughts, kind of guide them into a different direction, or you can be maybe self-disciplined with them and very, punctual with your thoughts and direct it another direction. But with that, still doing it from a place of unconditional love, not a place of, hating yourself or feeling like you need to be regretful because of the thoughts you're having, but just having that self-discipline, so to say, to just be like, hey, look, I get it, this thought's coming through and it's valid, I can see that, but there's also this perspective too. So stuff like that has been a pretty big key for me, and just being able to be efficient and self-empowered when it comes to navigating those type of thoughts that can happen. Because for me, I figure the more I can rely on myself to be able to do these things, especially for my own self, then I'll be able to help others and be able to share that wisdom with them.
Yeah, and I think the thing is so easy and so simple and easy to overlook is love. That's, like you mentioned, unconditional love, and that's it. Because God is love. That's the only verse. God is love and God is everywhere. I was told are the only two verses in everybody's Bible of every religion. Is God is love and God is omnipresent everywhere. So there's no place to go to get closer to God. You can't get out of God. We live 100% inside of God. Our whole being, the whole universe, is just the physical dimension aspect of our Creator. And it's all held together with love. And so the way to the right place, I say, the place we want to be is love. And there's some ways we can connect with that I would like to talk about now, with that divine love. And for me, it's in the garden. I have a great big organic garden and fruit orchard and nut orchard and chickens and rabbits and ducks and honeybees and alternative energy system and gravity fed water and spring water from up the mountain to the house and just all these beautiful, beautiful creature comforts and aesthetically appealing aspects here. But it all comes back to connecting with our source. And in nature, and of course in the managed nature of the garden and greenhouse, is where I usually go to connect. Like just a couple of days ago, I went to behind the shop, and where it's right near the creek, and I have my fungi garden there. And the shiitake logs were blooming, and it reminded me that my daughter and I had inoculated a great big white oak that had fallen in the forest a few years ago. And I thought, well, all this rain we've had lately have made these logs fruit and bloom like that. Maybe that tree is too. So I went to that tree, and it was a whole lot of great big beautiful shiitakes, just perfect for picking there in the forest on this gigantic white oak that fell a few years ago. And I've hit it like that several times since we inoculated it, and it'll go for some time because those fungi will continue to fruit when it's 50 to 75 degrees most of the day and real moist, until they digest most of the cellulose in that tree, and it'll be quite a while before that happens there. So working with nature and being tuned into it and seeing how we're expressing then that love, like I love my plants, I love my animals, and it gets that creator's love flowing through me. I work with children as a child psychologist, though I see a few adults, adolescents, and children. Um, I pray for them a lot of times. I'm just out and about, or I'm in the garden, and I think of one of them I'm working with. I make a prayer for them. So I'm working with them, on the inner, even when they're not here. Um, and I made a prayer with a girl recently who was having a really bad dream. She's about 10 or 11 years old. And the therapeutic kind of things that I learned, the things to do in therapy were limited. And this was a spiritual issue for her, where she was having these troubling dreams. And so I held her hands and made a prayer for her, and she was really touched by that. Next time she comes, I'm going to make a dream catcher for her and show her how you turn it on. Lots of people will buy a Chinese-made dream catcher at Walmart and hang it over their bed and wonder why they still have bad dreams. There's a way to turn it on with love and prayer. And it should be made by someone who cares about you and wants you to have a peaceful dream. And it doesn't mean you don't have trouble in dreams. We work stuff out in our dreams, where spirit is our therapist in our dreams. But we can make a prayer for that dream catcher to prevent dreams that are too troubling, that are too much for our loved one to handle at that time. And that gives them the confidence then. I had a little boy one time who came to see me, and his story was his mother told me that she was married to a violent, abusive guy. And she was a very petite little lady, and she said he was a great big bodybuilder, boxer kind of guy, and was really brutal to her in front of the children, who were 3, 5, and 7 when he finally left. She finally got him to leave the house, and as he was exiting the door for the last time, he turned around and said to his wife and 3 young children, "I'm going to come back and slit all your throats in the middle of the night." And he was just mean enough to do it. So this little 7-year-old boy, being the new man of the house, felt like it was his responsibility to protect his mother and sisters. So when the mother came to me for the background interview, she told me that he had not slept for more than 10 minutes since then, and that had been 2 years ago. And so when he came in to see me, he had dark circle bags under his eyes and was sleep deprived for 2 years. And I wanted to give him the feeling of power over his dreams and power over his problems. So I acted like I didn't know why he was here. And so after we just visited a little bit, I said, "Sir, why are you here? Most of the kids I see have some kind of problem they want me to help them with. Why are you here?" He said, "Oh, I have really, really bad dreams." I said, "What? That's all? You just have bad dreams? That's your whole problem?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, didn't anybody tell you how to fix that?" He said, "No, no." I said, "Well, where do your dreams come from?" And he said, "Well, I guess they come from my imagination." I said, "Of course they come from your imagination. So if you don't like what's happening in the dream, just use your imagination and change it. If you're running from something scary, just go, oh, I'm running from a puppy that just wants to play, and you turn around and there will be your puppy, or a butterfly. Or you can make yourself super big and powerful and just squish it, whatever it is. It's your dream, your imagination. You can change it." He said, "Really?" I said, "Of course." I said, "That's your only problem?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, you don't have a problem. That's no big deal. Let's play." And so we just played and made some art, And next day was a Saturday. His mom called about 11:30. "I'm sorry to bother you on the weekend, Dr. Busch, but he just slept for 16 hours. He woke up, said, 'I got to talk to Dr. Dave.' I said, 'Fine, put him on.' He said, 'It worked, Dr. Dave, it worked.' I said, 'What? What happened?' He said, 'Well, I went to sleep and immediately I had this dream where my best friend and I were running from a whole army of bad guys, and they had tanks and bazookas and airplanes and bombs, and they were all trying to kill us with everything they had. And I had a camera was bouncing against my chest as I was running. And I remembered what you said, that I could use my imagination and change it. So I made my camera a magic camera, that whatever I took pictures of disappeared. And I turned around and just went click, 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 and the whole army of bad guys disappeared. And then I slept for 16 hours. I said, "That was really cool. Good deal. Good move. You can just keep that camera handy whenever you go anywhere in your dream. Just imagine the camera's there, click it away if you want, or you can just make yourself a giant dragon and smash them all and burn them up, or whatever you feel like doing. It's your dream, your imagination. You're in total control." And that was that. You know. And so it was the love that showed me the way to go, not my training and all. And so it all comes back to that. And so one way to open the heart and connect is through nature, connecting with nature. And that's always been the way it's done, nature-based religion, ceremony, or just, it doesn't have to be organized and complicated. Just go sit your butt down in the forest when you're out of sorts, do your diaphragm breathing, close your eyes and merge.
Yep.
When you're out of balance and you go into a place that's in balance, it's going to put you in balance. Vice versa, no matter how in balance you are, if you go into a city where it's all cement and smog and violent chaotic vibrations, it's going to probably put you out of balance unless you got some serious protection going.
Yep.
And so, in fact, there's a whole field popular in Great Britain called eco-psychology, and that's the essence of it. Is the closer and more connected you are with nature, the more sane you're likely to be, and vice versa. And so another way to open the heart is simply with gratitude. How many times have you started to take your time for your morning prayer or whatever you do, and kind of not been able to think about, well, what do I want to focus on today? Just say thank you over and over and over again. Just send out waves of gratitude. You can think of the things you're thankful for, or just say thank you, even if you're not feeling gratitude. Just say thank you over and over again. Those words hold the vibration of what they mean. And you can be thankful for literally everything that happens. Like I've had two different chiropractors, a medical doctor and a chiropractor, x-ray my back 30 years apart. And they both said the same exact sentence, word for word, when they saw the x-ray. And that was, how can you even walk with that back? And I realized that my messed up back is a huge blessing because it forces me to stay in good shape. The muscles are the only thing holding it together. If I get too weak, I will probably be in a wheelchair. But if I keep my back strong by roaming off trail in these mountains and working in the garden a lot and keeping my belly pretty flat, if I get just a little belly, it changes the curve and pinches a nerve. So what most people would consider a terrible thing, having a messed up back, and the doctors all want to operate, I'm like, no. As long as I keep my belly flat and I stay strong, it don't hurt a bit. That's a blessing, see? So it's like that in terms of our physiology as well as our sociology and our interaction with others. When things happen and we have friction with others, there's so many different ways to look at it and learn from it. And that's what we're here to do. And how many times have you beat yourself up? Or, I thought I'd learned this lesson. I'm going through the same thing again, right? We've all done that, right? And then you do it again and again and again. And you hit yourself hard and it doesn't help a bit. You go through it yet again. But I want to set you free on that. And here's the solution right there. I need to have a big crystal handy. I don't have a clear quartz crystal handy to illustrate this. But think of a diamond, like a diamond, You're looking at that lesson from all these different angles. Each facet is a different perspective on the same lesson. Each level surface on that crystal gives you a view of what's inside that crystal. And each time you study it from a different angle, you better understand then that lesson. So think of the lesson as multifaceted like that, and realize that each time you go through it, it's not the same exact lesson. It's just related. And you're looking at different sides, different facets of that same lesson. And you're not as dumb as you thought you were, saying you're just lacking an understanding that we go through it again and again and again at different angles to fully grasp it until it's a part of us, and that crystal's like floating in our head and it's a part of us and we know it, and it's like assimilated into our body.
Thank you for all that.
My pleasure. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share, and for anybody who's looking at this. Thank you so much for this opportunity to share with you. Thank you.
That's right. Thank you to each and every one of you out there that will watch this. And thank you for each and every one of you just being yourselves, sharing this sacred space that we all get to exist in together. And just know that even if you're not aware or you don't know what gift you have or what it is that you're providing to this world, just know that if you did not exist right now, there wouldn't be some type of divine essence that chose to experience through, as whatever you'd like to say, with you. And just sit with that for a moment, if you wish to. So David, I see that you taught college for 13 years, and you also have your master's and doctor's degree in psychology. Wonderful. I'm really into psychology myself as well. What really intrigued you and drew you to psychology?
When I was born, I chose a family to be born into to prepare me for a lifetime devoted to helping children and young people. And my father told my mother, when his second wife, when they married, that he already had 2 parasites from his first marriage, and he would only marry her if she promised not to give him another parasite to have to take care of. And he proceeded to have unprotected sex with her every day, several times, until she got pregnant with me, and then he took it out on me and her. When I was about 50, I asked her, I said, my earliest memory, and I don't know if it's a memory or fantasy, but I keep having this idea of breastfeeding on you. And I'm trying to figure out why this man is looking at me with such jealousy and hatred. She said, yeah, that's a memory. That was what it was like. That's the way he looked at you when you were breastfeeding. So I came into a family where I was hated, not from birth, but from conception. And I realized by the time I was about 48 that the resentment I carried all those years towards my father was ridiculous, because I chose that family to come into specifically to prepare me for a lifetime of helping children and to be a good husband and father. And I'm not perfect by any means, but I am quite different than my father was. And I determined to be the opposite of him and be respectful to my wife and children. You can learn the right way to do things by having a great role model or a terrible role model to be the opposite from, And you still have their DNA, and you have all that role model learning from observation. That's a deep part of you. It's very, very hard to be significantly different than your same-sex parent. It takes a tremendous amount of effort if you want to be different than them significantly. But I was 7 when my father said, you can't go over and see Mr. Ritchie anymore across the road over there. Like most abusers, he was over-controlling and afraid I was going to tell Mr. Ritchie about how severe his beatings were, spankings were, and how often they occurred. And it wasn't until I could no longer go be with Mr. Ritchie that I realized how much it meant to me to go be able to hang out with a sweet old man who helped me with my school assignments and school projects and stuff that my father wasn't interested in. And all of a sudden I couldn't go over there. And I remember then telling my mom, when I grow up, I'm going to be somebody kids can talk to, when I was 7, before I knew there was such a profession. And so I'm probably about the only psychologist at 70 years old and still working pretty much full time, face to face with children. I don't have like by the way you make the big bucks as a psychologist, you can have a bunch of people working for you actually doing the work, and you charge your full hourly rate while you pay them a third of it. And that's how you make the big bucks, which I don't do. It's just me, old school, just one person at a time coming in to see me. And it's almost all medicated here in the Southern Appalachians, rural setting. So I make about 1/3 what the average psychologist makes, or 1/4. But I can't feel good about supervising people doing what I'm inspired to do. I have the vision of doing it myself, so I do it all myself, and with just one person at a time. And I understand now why I chose that family to go into, and completely have no resentment at all towards my father for being the way he was. I got to see him cross over, and I saw him going into the light, totally transformed. And I realized, wow, if my father gets to go into the light, everybody goes into the light.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for being open enough to be vulnerable about that. Ooh, man. It's very similar actually to my last podcast, my last guest. You know the last guest in my podcast, Grandmother Blue Star. She tells her story about what she had went through in her childhood, and she's at a point, it has been a point in her life of just reverence, gratitude for what could have seemed as tragic type of things that took place, but in essence were almost gateways for her to be able to access a higher awareness, a higher sense of self and consciousness. And it's very interesting. You know, we find that throughout our lives. We go through these very dark valleys and shadows. Feels like feels like real death. You know, it feels like things may never end or something is coming to an end. And then we get through that and we come out anew. We come out with these newfound wisdoms within ourselves that we were able to almost trigger and access due to the magnitude of those energetic experiences that we went through. And then it's almost like what I like to say opportunities for us to be able to step even more into our alchemical powers or alchemist powers, so to say, which is what are you going to do with all of this? You're going through this. This is happening through you, with you, against you, whatever it is you want to perceive it as. But what are you going to do with all of it? What are you going to do with the energy of it, the information behind it? And that's infinite possibilities. Depends on who we are, what's going on, what's happening in our path, and all these different things that contribute. And to know also, like, there's no right or wrong to what it is that happens or what it is that we do with it. Just to know there's always a continuance of, if you want to use the word evolution, you can, just transformation of energy, so to say. No true life or death. No hermetic principle, can't remember which one, but the understanding of energy not being created or destroyed, but being transformed from form to form. Wow. So I see here also that you are a part of the world's best organic fertilizer.
Well, I started organic gardening with my dad when I was 5. We would rake up the leaves and rotting leaves mixed with animal manure around Grandma's barn and put it in her field and bring it home to our garden and orchard. And so I grew up. Dad did use one chemical on an impossible weed to get rid of called nutgrass that fortunately we don't have here in the southern Appalachians. But other than that, it was organic with him. And then I learned more about it over the next 65 years. And I was always tweaking my own fertilizer blend. And about 7 or 8 years ago, a friend said, "Hey, how come your garden always looks so awesome and everything's so pretty and big and productive?" And all. I said, "Well, it's probably my fertilizer, you know." And he said, "Well, how about selling me some of that? Let me have some." I said, "Okay, you know, I'll show you some. I'll give you some, whatever." And then he told some other people, and pretty soon, you know, a number of different folks were coming wanting to get my fertilizer. And then somebody said, "Why don't you get it in some retail outlets, you know?" And so I started having it tested at the University of Georgia Plant Water and Soil Lab to get the NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium ratio up, see how high I could get it with organic products. Like if you go do a search or you look online or you look in a store where there's organic fertilizers, you'll see that 3 numbers on all fertilizers for their nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. And the most popular fertilizer is a chemically synthesized one that's 10-10-10, where there's 10% nitrogen, 10% phosphorus, 10% potassium. And the organic fertilizer is the highest, closest one. You would come to that with something like 473 or 475, something like that. But I kept tweaking it over and over again with this, mailing the samples to the University of Georgia lab until I got it to 10-10-10 organic. Omri listed 10-10-10 organic fertilizer called Dr. Dave's Ultimate Living Fertilizer because it's got a whole lot of fungi and bacteria spores in it, and all sorts of wonderful soil amendments like biochar and azomite and kelp, things that you don't often find in fertilizer. So So yeah, I say it's the best organic fertilizer in the world because it does have by far the highest NPK. And it's just like a tiny little bit more expensive than the other organic fertilizers, but it goes twice as far. And so,
Man, that's
DrDaysUltimate.com.
I'll be
And
sure to
just,
definitely
yeah,
put
check
your
it out.
website.
It's on Etsy. It's on Etsy, and I got it in 17 retail outlets now, and I'm buying it by the ton, already mixed up now, and so I'm getting ready to gear up and go national with it pretty soon. I hope.
Congratulations on that. That's
Thank
so
you.
beautiful to see. And
I love seeing it help people have success in their organic gardens. Like I just got through pick. I've got a great big bag of tomatoes I picked just before I came in here for this interview. Probably about 30 tomatoes like that. I
oh,
just picked
sweet.
right before I came in. And I got a greenhouse full of tropical fruit, and I've got lemon trees outdoors, and kiwis, and goji
Mm.
berries, and gumi berries, and
Oh,
honey berries,
man.
and all kinds of stuff. It's fun. I love it. And it's staying healthy. Part of your vibratory rate of your physical body has a great deal to do with how easily and readily the spiritual energy flows through it.
Yep.
And it's important, I think, to you can get over obsessed with it with anything. Humans tend to overdo things. You can be so obsessed about the health of your physical body and neglect your spiritual. We're mental, emotional, physical, spiritual beings, like four links in a chain. We're only as strong as the weakest link. So we want to be strong in all four, daily tending
Yeah.
to all four, to be the strongest person, the greatest helper that we can be.
Mm-hmm. Aho. Aho to that. That's really beautiful, though, the fertilizer. And to mix in other beautiful medicines such as mushroom and other compounds. And then to think that all that fertilizer that they've co-created is going into the beds of the earth and then nuzzling these beautiful seeds into life onto this planet for that to then go into another person and animal, whatever it may be. It's a really beautiful thing.
Thank you. I wanted to go back. I wanted to back up just a little bit when you were talking about how life kind of beats us up sometime and takes us through all these changes and so forth. And I want to address the question of why bad things happen to such good people. And often the worst things happen to the best people at times.
Mm.
And I want to talk about that a little bit because that's a perplexing question for most people. So many people think the better person you are, the better spirit's going to treat you, and the more creature comforts you're going to have, and so forth. There's that kind of thinking out there, and it misses some fundamental realities. So I'm really into Native American spirituality, and there's a little medicine wheel light behind me there. And so there's a lot of teachings off of that four-direction medicine wheel. So I want to address that for a moment. When we have a tough lesson come to us, we say the north wind has blown into your life. This harsh blizzard comes in, and you had your cards of your life all stacked neatly and organized, and everything was predictable and running so smoothly. And then all of a sudden, you found out you're losing that dream job you finally got, or your loved one is leaving you, or you lost a leg, or you got a cancer diagnosis. We have little ones, and then we have these big ones too. But you can think of those big lessons as like a blizzard blowing into your life from the north. Like your cards are scattered in that blizzard, and you're groping in snow blindness trying to pick up the cards of your life and put them back together again. And it seems so pointless. Like you're never going to be happy and laughing again. And you can think of it like going around that wheel. So you start there at that north traumatic experience, and you gradually go around to the east, to the sunrise, to the new beginning, where there's a little glimmer of hope. But it's when we're in the northeast that people give up and flake out and relapse or commit suicide or worse. And it helps to know this teaching, to not give up when we're in the Northeast, to not feel like it's pointless and random, because it's not pointless or random. Nothing is pointless or random or punitive for that matter. You just hold on. You wait. Sometimes the night is long, but always that sun eventually comes up in the east every morning. Just wait. Things will get better. Change is the only constant. And when you're at the bottom, you got nowhere to go but up. So just wait. Things will get better. Watch the sunrise when you're in the Northeast, waiting for your new beginning. Dream the best new beginning you can imagine. Think about it. Dream about it. Study your dreams. Write your dreams first thing every morning. Be open to the many blessings and the reality that it's all orchestrated for your benefit. Gradually, that new beginning comes up. The sun rises in the east. You meet that new person. You get that new job interview. Whatever. You get that glimmer of hope in that little crack, that one ray of sunlight coming over the horizon. And then finally you come around to the south. In the north is the disintegration. In the south is the reintegration. So you start enjoying being around people again, and you finally get around to the south. You can laugh again, a belly laugh even, and enjoy socializing and just having fun again and not feel guilty or upset and feel like you got to carry around that burden and tell everybody about your lesson that you're on, your journey. And so you start feeling better. You got most of your cards stacked back together. Your life's kind of taking shape pretty well now in the south. And gradually you come around to the west. Just as in the east, you had that new beginning come to you in the sunrise. In the west, you let go of anything residual hanging on from that time around the wheel. There was a woman came to see me who couldn't let go of her anger towards the physician who murdered her mother in surgery, according to her. That this doctor messed up operating on her mother and killed her. And she just stayed furious at this doctor. It kept her from dealing with the grief of her mother's death. And when she got around to the west, as I was telling her this teaching, she realized that she was hanging on to that bitterness and resentment, and that doctor was just another fellow who went to work that day and made a bad choice. For an auto mechanic who makes a bad choice, they have to redo the repair, no big deal. But for a medical doctor or surgeon, a life might be lost because of having a bad day. That's just the way life works. And so she was able to let go of that then in the west, to then give it to the sunset. Just as you look at the sunrise to get that new beginning, look to the sunset and give to it whatever karma or bitterness or resentment or confusion or self-blame you carry from that lesson that you're going through. You integrate the lesson fully then in the west and die to that lesson and be done with it and integrate it to your person, where it's no longer a burden to bear, but a release that lightens your load. And then in the northwest is that time of peace and predictability, and the illusion of security returns. After a while, you feel uneasy because in your heart you know everything I'm saying is true, and you know it's coming. You know that next blizzard's coming. Things have been going so well too long. You know it's coming. And then boom, it comes, and then we're, oh, why me? Why me? What did I do to deserve this? And we know, and our grandmas are on the other side saying, snickering, saying, we worked for 14 years to create this scenario for this beautiful lesson, and there they are whining, why me about it, And so it helps to rise above it. And it's dramatic, that journey around and around that wheel, until finally we learn to trust in the process. When that seeming devastation occurs, we know in our heart and in our subservient minds, subservient to spirit, we know this is just another dance around the wheel, a beautiful lesson. I don't have to get all in my emotional self and get all worked up about it, unless I want to for a while. That's part of the human experience. But we can rest in the center under the tree of life and be at peace and just watch the whole process occur and choose what we want to let ourselves feel and how far we want to let ourselves go into the experience, and then come back every day to the center, to be soul, to know that soul is always a happy entity. It's a part of God. It knows, it understands everything, and it's just expanding its brightness as we remove the things that impede the light flowing through us through all these lessons, until we become, like Fool's Crow said, the hollow bone. Picture a bone just hollowed out until it's just shiny inside, and spirit can just flow through and use us in the most beautiful ways. I like to sit at the table by the grocery store entrance. I may sit there 45 minutes before I go in. Somebody asked me the other day, what are you doing? I said, I'm the unofficial greeter. But I was sitting there, I sit there and I give love to everyone coming and going, especially the little children being drug in by the hand, whose mothers are ignoring their pleas for patience and love. And the old men and women hobbling in on their canes and walkers. And those who go in and only buy one sandwich because they don't have enough to buy anymore. I pray for those people and receive their blessings in return. And so, yeah, there's so many beautiful ways to channel that divine love that we all are. And that's what we're going to be doing after we drop these shells. So why wait? Let's start playing more at that level, just being channels for that beautiful divine love to those who need it.
I love that. It is those little creative ways that we can really introduce or be able to bridge, spiritual energy or just consciousness to people in our everyday world. Examples like what you were saying, just sitting out by the door at this grocery store and just giving Reiki energy or giving prayer, affirmation to people. There's so many, fake walls that we have put up when we go into public and go into society. And not to point people out, but even within our spiritual communities, some of us have put up these walls of not being of some type of resonance with those that are in the mass population and are not exactly, quote unquote, according to whatever standard that person may be projecting, is not exactly awake or spiritual. And I just, myself, I've been embracing more and more to just really dissolve those walls, those barriers of really creating within our own self, within my own mind, a dissonance between fellow beings, just because they may not be aware of something that I'm not aware of, or they're not practicing something that I'm not practicing. Doesn't mean that there isn't a way, and many different ways, of being able to bridge and interconnect with that person's energy field in a manner that is tangible and understandable for them. And it could be very subtle, where you show up at an everyday place and then you're doing something that's kind of out of the ordinary for that everyday environment. But that thing that you're doing that's kind of out of the ordinary is something very beneficial, positive, uplifting, and that right there can be a domino effect. especially if we were to continuously, just whenever we felt, placed ourselves in different places that typically don't get those type of blessings, so to say. And the more we do that, and from what I've found, especially recently with going to 2 festivals in the last 2 weeks in different states that have been first time festivals, that also have a lot of people that are kind of newer, so to say, on their self-awareness and spiritual journey. um, I see how there is tremendous value in not continuing, and this is just for me at least, not continuing to place myself in, my main community all the time, or in the places where everybody really knows me a lot, but to spread that wealth, so to say. And this kind of goes back to, like, you think of the apostles, the disciples, and many other figures. They don't just stay all together in one spot forever. They spread out the teachings. They go to different points in the world. They go to different areas that are quote unquote, what you'd say is like spiritually poor. They don't have tremendous access. They don't have that guidance through other figures of sharing the wisdom, sharing the knowledge of self, and that they have a living Christ consciousness, Buddha consciousness, living spirit that is flowing inside of them as well. And
Yeah.
it's been very touching. I've definitely done a lot of crying in the last couple of weeks just by seeing the beautiful connections and the self-awareness that people have been able to obtain just by me being a medium and being a channel for meditation or teachings that were able to really change these souls and their trajectory of the way they perceive their whole life and the way that they see their self. It's oof.
One of the hazards that the ego can sneak up on you and make a fool of you in this kind of work we're talking about is we start thinking we're so spiritual, we're above all these others, and that sort of thing, especially brought up in this culture where we're obsessed with competition and so forth. One of the solutions to that I've come up with is imagine a continuum of consciousness. It's a mile-long continuum. On one end of it is a single electron. On the other end of it is God consciousness. And every little gradation along the way, on that continuum. The range of human consciousness on Earth is about a quarter inch on that mile-long continuum. So none of us are that far ahead or behind when you consider the range of human consciousness on Earth compared to the whole continuum of consciousness. We're not that different, the highest to the lowest. And the big footnote is you can go from being the human on Earth at the highest state of consciousness of any human on Earth to the lowest state of consciousness of any human on Earth, and as long as it takes to change thoughts. It's not like you attain it and then you've got it. It's a moment by moment thing. And you can go from the highest consciousness to the lowest in as long as it takes to change thoughts. And that ego will lure you into thinking how spiritually evolved you are and all, and then you'll bust your tail, and get humbled. I had a sweet old Native American grandma tell me one time, she said, David, eventually everyone learns respect. Some learn it the easy way through gratitude and humility, but most have to learn it the hard way. But eventually, everyone learns respect. And so that's what it comes to. Gratitude, humility, respect, and love. And just relaxing. You know, sometimes we work too hard at our growth and development and become kind of obsessed with working at it. I got to work hard. Like you alluded to a while ago, we literally have forever. You know? And so we don't have to like work hard at it. We're already in it. We are inside of God, completely immersed in God's love 100% of the time, and you can't get out of it. No place to go, no level to achieve, just a human being, just sitting there being, observing, and feeling that love. That's it. That's the ultimate right there. It's not complicated.
Yep. Simplicity. So I see here that you've been on the Red Road since 1976, and you also had an office in 1977 in natural healing, herbal medicine, reflexology, and massage. Are you still currently offering any of these services?
I'm transitioning more into that. I've seen a few people. I was at a drum practice and singing practice about 3 months ago, and a Cherokee couple came, and I'd never met them before. And so this guy was an old-time drum leader, semi-retired, was teaching about 5 of us songs around the drum. And his wife came up behind me and put her arms around me. And I had just said hello to her. We hadn't even had a conversation. I doubt seriously she knew my name. And she said, "This man has a strong spirit, but he's not listening to it. And if he doesn't start listening to it, that heart problem he was having is going to come back a whole lot worse." And the spirit, his true self, wants to be that natural healer, that holistic healer again, and it's tired of waiting on him to get around to doing that. And he better listen to it, or it's going to go find another body to manifest in, because it wants to get back into holistic healing. The next day I posted on Facebook, I am now available for holistic healing sessions. Because I listen to those kind of things and take them very seriously. And I had cryoablation, heart surgery about 6 years ago for AFib, and I'd had 2 episodes of AFib come back in the previous month before that grandmother put her arms around me. I haven't had another one since I posted on Facebook. I'm now available for holistic healing sessions. And so, as I transition into the final professional stage of my life, I want to do more. I want to be able to do whatever comes to me. I don't want to have to worry about losing my psychology license for getting too spiritual with people. And I want to be able to do some energy work and maybe some massage. I don't know, whatever spirit guides me. I want to be able to offer the full range of healing modalities that I'm familiar with, so I can be of the greatest benefit for the most people. And so that's basically what I'm going to start, what I am doing now. And what I'm going to do is just have a couple of days a week where I'm the psychologist, and a couple of days a week where I'm doing my natural healing and spiritual healing stuff.
Oh boy, that's gonna be it's gonna be really beautiful, and I definitely will support you in any way that I can, whether it's helping you with an online presence, helping you create graphics or flyers, even like promotions for you, anything like that. You have my gift, and I will definitely support you in any way I can. And I have a lot of knowledge when it comes to the online world and how to use this technology. So I'm here to share it with.
Great. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I will take you up on that offer.
Yeah. I really, something that's been a huge fire and passion inside of me is being that bridge for, I mean, not just one demographic, but many different demographics. And one specific demographic, so to say, that Spirit has led me to bridge with this online world is our elders, our elder community. There's so much wisdom and so much knowledge that you guys all hold. And it is great to keep it on foot and to share it person to person. But there's an expansion. There's expansion in our consciousness as a collective going on. And it's been expanding for a long time and it'll continue to with resources. And these online things, technologies, at least for me, is I see them nothing more as resources. Resources for us to extend our consciousness, to amplify light and energy into the world at a more efficient and quantum level. So that's the core intention of why I even have this online presence and why I do what I do, is to help bridge all of us more efficiently around the world, be able to share.
It allows exponential connections in the web of life.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a way of humans connecting with one another that didn't exist before. And because of people like you and me and all the other people that are doing this kind of work, having more of a supportive network, it accelerates the expansion of consciousness for the whole. And so it is a divine thing, this ability to connect. The greater and richer and more diverse our connections in the web of life, just as in the garden or the forest, in our everyday life, the more viable an entity we are. And so the internet allows us to exponentially expand our connections in the web of life with like-minded people, and it makes us all stronger and helps the spirit energy flow through us all better to be interconnected like we're doing right now.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then to think how it can basically capture time, so to say. I'm not really defining time as anything exactly, but to think that we can capture time and moments through these devices and technologies, such as this podcast right now, and how it's being captured to then be broadcasted and streamed throughout the universe through these different devices here on the Earth plane. It's so fascinating. Like, to think that we're recording this now, nobody is physically watching it right now, but then as soon as it's uploaded onto YouTube, it's going to be there for everybody in the whole world to watch now, then generations and generations and generations to come.
It illustrates the point, that all there is the now. That's all there is. When someone is watching this, you and I will be doing something else, and so they'll be time traveling, see? And they will be in their now, experiencing our now as we are right now in this moment. They'll be experiencing in that moment that will be the same now that we're in right now as they're watching it. And so it illustrates, we're able to play with time like that, is what you're talking about. We can do time travel with the internet.
Yep. And that's been a funny self-awakening after self-awakening experience for me, being a editor and producer of my own content and everything. Just like capturing all these podcasts and all these lives, and then sitting back and then switching into the editor mode. So then I'm sitting there watching the live after I did the live, and I'm watching myself doing the live while I'm editing it. And then I'm like manipulating that time present frame into the editing and all that stuff. And then I make it into something, I guess, new, so to say, and then broadcast it into the stream for everybody. And then I sit back and turn on my TV when it's premiering on YouTube and sit there and watch it as an observer, like I'm the audience. And it's funny stuff when you really get into the thick of that type of creating. It makes you kind of really just see more and more, just like anything else in life, of course. But it just makes you see really more and more like that infinite vast expansion of what we are as multidimensional beings. So cool.
Yeah, yeah, sure is. I mean, it's like a first time a child walks onto a playground. Wow,
Hmm.
look at all this stuff we can do, and have so much fun doing it, and do it with other people. And it's all just playing with spirit energy. And there's so much negativity in the world right now that anybody like yourself trying to do something that's just all positive, it feels like you're being sucked in like a vacuum and thrown out into the world with it, because it's bad. Live in the world of duality here, where everything has to be in balance. And so, like, all that negativity creates a pull from the positive to be in balance. And so, if you're doing anything, anyone listening, if you're trying to do anything that's just purely positive and for the benefit of the whole, hang on to your hat, open your heart and mind, and ride the wave.
Yeah. Resistance will definitely be flowing. But I always see that stuff too as like the molding, so to say, or the sharpening of what it is that you're trying to obtain or trying to embody. Um, from like a metaphysical standpoint, if you're trying to become Christ consciousness embodied, or you're trying to become, your higher self in your body, or so to say, something like that, then there's like this metaphysics behind the vibrational being of, in order for its frequency to raise, then that means it's got to be able to release and let go of the densities that are energetically causing it to be able to vibrate lower than what it is that you're trying to obtain and embody. So with that, it's where the shadow work comes in. The shadows start getting pulled to the surface, the patterns, the attachments, the wounds, and all these different things that we call the underworld, and the shadowy side of ourselves come up. And something I try to remember and remind others as well is, that gentleness and grace of becoming aware that through this process of enlightening the being or becoming a lighter version of ourselves, that these things can come up. The shadows, so to say, the old patterns, the old habits, the connections, the attachments. And when they come up, and this is from my own perspective, of course, they come up from being stored within our being already due to the past experiences that we accumulated energetically. And that density gets brought up and brought out to the surface so that we can address it in some type of conscious manner and be able to either release it, integrate it, heal from it, whatever it may be that we use that conscious informational energy for. And a lot of times we're bound to replay past memories, past attachments, and other things as we go through this process due to the alchemizing of fully releasing that density or whatever it is that may be stored within us. So then through that releasing of it, we can then become more of that lighter vibration that we are trying to obtain. And a lot of times we don't think in this type of manner whatsoever. And we think that because an old memory is continuously happening or a old pattern keeps coming up, that we're messing up or that we're doing something wrong. But I've adjusted to seeing it as this alchemical process, and the reason why these kind of things resurface back up from within is to allow that to be able to be released out of our system from already being brought into our system due to the experience, trauma, or whatever it may be that brought it into our energy field in the first place. Through that approach, I've been able to find a lot more harmony, a lot more ease, a lot more grace with being able to process and clear out these things as they arise. It was really interesting when it came to me through spirit, that type of articulation. And it really made sense to me because, like, being magnetic beings, and then through our magnetism, we draw in the information, the energy, and experiences. And then as it becomes density, depending on what type of frequency that vibration is or that experience is, it can either build up our being or it can dysfunction our being. And it's almost like those experiences or energy on like a quantum level, so to say, just stack up and bury and become density until they get addressed. And sometimes we walk through our life and we go through our whole life and we never address these things. And that density can stay with us consciously as we move on to the next phase of our existence. And relating that, you look at a lot of ancient cultures. I know a lot of the Western Asian cultures, they talk about, softening the body and having a very soft and open body when you're transitioning onto your next life phase, due to that softness allowing the spirit and allowing the energy of who you are as this individual is able to be freed and not have any karmic connection to this earth realm.
I would add to that, while all that's true, everything you said is true, remember this: you already are Christ consciousness. You already are soul.
Mm-hmm.
You're already connected to the infinite divine, inseparable from it, in fact, indistinguishable from it, like one drop in the ocean. And so if we buy into this notion of, I've got to work on all this stuff to get it out of the way so I can be that Christ consciousness, that becomes our reality. But it is also true that we can go from, like I said, from the lowest state of consciousness on the planet to the highest, just like that, according to how we choose where we put our attention, where we let our thoughts go. And it doesn't have to be 44 lifetimes of work to get to what we already are. All we have to do is just remember we're already everything we want to be. And we can carry that stuff and make it a long, arduous journey, or we can just let it go the easy way, by embracing gratitude, humility, respect, and love. Just embrace that. Just be it. Just be a human being. Just be where you are, fully conscious and centered in your heart, in the heart, you, not your heart, you, not your spirit, you, centered in what you are. Like everybody says, be yourself. They don't realize what they're saying. When someone says, be yourself, yeah, exactly, be yourself. Yourself is soul. You are soul. That point of awareness, the little speck of light, it zings around and goes wherever it wants to go. With an instantaneous relocation at any place in the universe, in any dimension, as fast as thought. That's what we are. That point of consciousness, that's a part of the whole. That can be anything and anywhere at any time it wants. It's completely free. We don't have to spend centuries working through all that stuff that we think we need to work through. That can hold us back, and that belief can become the block to getting where we want to be, because we're already there.
Yeah.
It's about being in the present moment. There's a whole school of thought in psychology called Gestalt therapy. Be Here Now is the name of one of the books. I was blessed to have my first year of graduate school in 1976, a teacher that was trained in Gestalt at SLC and brought it to Texas and taught it to us. And Gestalt therapy, Gestalt dream work is a beautiful way of working with your dreams. And it's all here now. It's about being in the present moment. So just whenever you find yourself caught up in your thoughts or worries or anything, just try to be here now. Look around the room. Just say, oh, there's a window. There's a tree outside that window. I can see that green tree. And you can even take it to the point where you're not even identifying what it is. I can see something green out there with these woody-looking stems with these soft, flat green things on them. And I see there's light coming from some electrical source right there. It's like I can see there's some red right here, blue right here. I see that wavelength right there, where you just try and tune in to the present moment, your sensory experience of just being in this moment by just looking around you and identifying what you actually see, hear, taste, and feel. That's what's so magical about romance is when we're connecting with that other person and we change the frequency. We touch each other in a lighter manner than we normally touch people, and our movement across the surface of the skin is slower than usual. And we shift to another frequency together. It brings us into the present moment. And that's the magic of that moment of making love. What is love? God is love. When we're making love, we're making God. We're creating a flow of love into this dimension of selfless giving and receiving, being in the present moment with another entity. That's the magic. It's the present moment of just being together.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Sacral chakra. Yeah. Emotions are such a power for our senses. And I just want to give love and just give prayer to those that have either suppressed, rejected, or have felt not worthy of feeling their emotions or being able to express their emotions. And for anybody out there that's hearing this, I just want you to know that there are safe places and there are support systems out there, including myself and many others, that can hold space for you and allow you to be able to feel your emotions, to process them, to feel like you are valid and worthy of feeling the connection of the spiritual energy in life. And yeah, just wanted to send that out to everybody.
It's so beautiful, and I just can't emphasize enough the simplicity. Keep it simple. Lost was one of the first series that became really popular. Have you ever seen Lost, Marcus?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was one of the first series that was popular. You may recall that, there was this plane crashed on this island, and there was all this violent conflict with people on the other side of the island, and there was a time machine that bounced them around in time. But living in the center of the island was a couple that had seeds for their garden when the plane crashed, and they have a garden in the center of the island. And all through the series, about every other episode or every third episode, there'll be this group running through the forest with their guns to either get killed or be killed or run away and go kill somebody else or whatever, all this intensity and panic. And they stumble upon this couple in the middle of the island tending their garden. And they say, don't you know, if we don't get over here, the time's going to jump 150 years or whatever. And they go, yeah, we're just going to be doing our garden. You know, it doesn't really matter to us what happens. You know, if time leaks, we'll still be here just tending our garden. You know, doesn't make any difference to us. But aren't you worried about blah, blah, blah? No, we're just tending our garden. Everything's fine, you know. And boy, I really got that message, you know.
Yep.
Keep it simple. Keep it simple. It's so simple. And it's about being in the present moment and just feeling that we're swimming in an ocean of love and mercy all the time. And whatever we can put our attention on that, or we can put our attention on, I'll sure be glad when I work through all these blocks. Yeah. And I don't always stay in that state of consciousness, of course. That's part of the human experience. You can't stay in it all the time or you wouldn't be here. I like a line I heard one time say, how do you know when you've learned all you need to know? You know, well, if you're still here, you got more to learn.
Yeah, exactly.
And some people come back, you know. I hear that you can get to that point where, you know, this is, I think of the physical dimension as like spiritual kindergarten, you know. And at some point you can choose whether or not to come back. And also that concept explains why there's so many low state of consciousness people that can be so harsh and cruel and violent and all this kind of stuff, because that's the nature of the physical dimension. It is, you know, a lot of people on their first or second lifetime don't have a clue about what they ought to be doing or can't be doing, or doing all kind of self-destructive and collecting karma, you might say, those first 20 lifetimes or whatever, you know, and that's paying off. And by the same token, the reverse, like when someone steals from me, and believe me, I could do a whole series on how much people have stolen from me in my life, hundreds of millions of dollars. And when they do, I say, got room for the TV, you know, because they're taking karma rocks. I think of it as a backpack full of karma rocks, and they're taking all these karma rocks out of my backpack and putting them into theirs, you know.
Yeah.
So my attitude, you hurt me, you abuse me, you disrespect me, take advantage of me, got room for the TV? You know, that's kind of where I go to every time, and it gets me out of that poor me. Oh my gosh, ripped off again? Okay.
Yeah.
Have some more, you know.
I love that. Well, David, I guess this might be a good time to start wrapping up. We are going on about 2 hours. Wow, how beautiful. Is there anything at all that you feel called to share? Is there any type of references or anything that you would like to lead people to that they can access?
Well, like I said, there's a lot of ways of connecting with that heart medicine, nature. I mentioned that, and sitting at the entrance of the grocery store and just giving love to everyone coming and going, saying hello to those who glance at you, and playing with children, going to a park and just watching children play, loving your pet, you know. That's another interesting thing, is how our pets have achieving or growing with us and getting more higher states of consciousness from all the love and affection we're giving them at another level than it used to be. And any kind of service, working at a homeless shelter, serving others in any way, shape, or form, giving to others and helping them, picking up a hitchhiker or whatever, you know, just looking for ways to bring a little light into those who need it, just a little smile walking down the sidewalk, a little hello, just being open to be used in whatever way. It's all right there. And reading books, going to workshops, going to events, that's all good and fine, fertilizer along the way, but remember, you already live in the garden. You already live in the center of the universe, and it's all so beautiful. We just have to open our inner eyes and see it with our outer eyes as we do on the inner, to know we're living in the magic of the moment. And it's all the same moment, the only moment there's ever been, the now. It's all there ever has been, right now. Anything that brings you into that present moment, where you slow down and tune in to the vastness, that butterfly waving at you, that hummingbird, that that pet that curls up in your lap and purrs, or that you love. Cherish those moments. Don't hold yourself back. Go with it. It's all right here, right now. Everything you long for and seek, it's already a part of you. It's right here now, fully available. All you have to do is tune in and go with it. Look at the sun through the trees as it sets. Close your eyes and still see it in there. Listen to the constant inner sound to tune into the present, and learn to look at those inner lights. When you close your eyes, it's not all black. You can see the subtle comings and goings and the little pinpoints of lights, the visitors who come. And you can relax. It's all okay. There's nothing to fear. Nothing can hurt you. Your soul is invincible. It's happy about everything that's going on around you and in you. It's all good. It's all carefully orchestrated by people who have love for us more than we can imagine, helping us have all these experiences we need. It's all beautiful. It's all perfectly good, exactly as it should be. Nothing to fear. We're all evolving together. We're loved far than we can ever imagine.
With all that being said, I want to say thank you to each and every one of you out there that are going to be a part of this energy field, that are going to be watching, supporting, commenting, whatever it may be. Thank you to all of you for being on this journey with us. And remember too, guys, remember to have some fun. Let that inner child out. Allow yourself to dance a little bit. Get down to some music. Enjoy some childhood cartoons once in a while. I don't know, the small things that just allow you to feel joy, to feel that innocence and that peace.
Here you go. I got one for you. Frankie Beverly and Maze. M-A-Z-E. Frankie Beverly and Maze. We are one and love is the key. There's some good music for you.
David, thank you so much for joining me in this sacred space today. And I will be sure to put down below in the description the links to your website, as well as anything else for people to access what it is that you offer and are a part of. And I am definitely open to holding more spaces and podcasts with you as much as you would like.
Sure. Fine. Whatever. I'm happy to have an outlet to share with people. That's what I do. That's why I'm here. The more people I can help, the happier I am. Thank you for having me, Mark.
Absolutely. Well, everybody have a blessed and beautiful day. And David, you as well. And thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Have a beautiful journey.